I'd like to welcome all of you to this exciting event that celebrates the power of public-private partnerships, the power of coming together from different sectors to change the lives of tens of thousands of young people in Central America, in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. My name is Selena De Sola, and I am one of the founders and director of programs, Glasswing International, a Salvadoran nonprofit that I will speak a little bit more about in a moment. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our special guests that are joining me at the table. There are not only our special guests, but also strong partners in the work that all of us together are doing to improve conditions in Central America. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Lopez, Deputy Assistant Administrator for Latin America and the Caribbean for the United States Agency for International Development. I'd like to introduce Teddy Mendoza, Manager of Corporate Social Responsibility and Environmental Affairs at HanesBrands, and William Irvin, Manager of International Affairs at Chevron. This partnership is innovative, and it really represents, as you can see from the banner behind us, it represents a new paradigm shift for international development models and programs, bringing together multinational corporations, U.S. government through USAID, and a Salvadoran organization, and our partners in country to implement programs throughout Central America. USAID's role as a powerful convener and catalyzer, providing not only financial and technical support, but also championing this new model, is critical. HanesBrands and Chevron are not only here because they believe in the importance of investing in public education with their financial resources, but also with their human resources, which is also why this is unique, because their human resources, their most valuable resources that a corporation can have, are also engaged in these programs as volunteers. So by engaging their employees in the programs that they also help fund, they're really engaging many of their assets, not just their financial assets. They're making sustained investments in communities. They're changing lives. As we continue our agenda for this morning, I'd like to thank all of you for being here today, our guests from different corporations, from different organizations, institutions, embassies, and the media. So we'd like to thank you, and I'd like to start by sharing a video with you that I think speaks more loudly than anything I can say. I'd like to share this video with you, and then we'll continue with our agenda.
Madrecita, en este día vengo a decirte lo mucho que te amo. En el vientre ella me ha cuidado y hasta hoy su amor no me ha faltado. Oh, sometimes I get a good feeling, yeah.
Yo diría que es un club donde nosotros podemos cantar y bailar con libertad, o sea, y donde podemos llegar y aprender nuevas cosas, ¿verdad? Donde ocurren y surgen nuevas oportunidades, cosas que nosotros ni siquiera sabíamos que iban a pasar, ¿verdad?
En el tiempo que tengo de estar aquí en el Club Glee, he aprendido a trabajar en equipo. He aprendido a convivir con mis compañeros, a estar unidos en las buenas y malas y no dejarnos en ningún momento.
Eran unos sueños que de verdad los anhelaba y falta gente que nos potencie y nos apoye para poder salir. Entonces, qué mejor siendo un ente que pudiera potenciar la autoestima en ellos y que creara la seguridad en ellos para poder realizar sus sueños, y eso es algo invaluable, yo creo, en la vida de los niños.
Estamos generando que no siga más violencia en nuestro país, ¿verdad? Para mí esto es es una bomba.
He aprendido que hay que sabernos valorar, respetarnos. No solo significa venir a jugar y azul, sino que nos enseñan a llevarnos bien entre todos. No quiere decir que todos jugamos así como individualmente, sino que todos somos un equipo.
Tiene un gran carisma, ella, o sea, cuando baila se le nota el carisma, se le nota que lo hace porque le gusta bastante.
Puedo volar.
Antes yo no me llevaba con nadie, o sea, el club me ha hecho hacer amigos, a desarrollarme más.
Es impactante lo que estamos haciendo, básicamente formando jóvenes líderes, seguros de sí mismos que vencen sus temores y aprenden a trabajar en equipo. Todo eso se logra por medio de los ensayos de canto, de baile y las sesiones de diálogo y convivencia que tenemos en cada uno de estos clubes.
Y ahora como coordinador me ha cambiado la vida, o sea, yo me siento que estoy siendo parte de un cambio en el país y en la vida de los jóvenes. Te puedo decir que estoy feliz de ver personas cambiadas, chavos que conocí yo que nunca hablaban y que ahora los veo hablar, los veo en un escenario, actuando, cantando. Hay veces que te dan ganas de llorar y decir, vos, puchico, o sea, lo que estamos haciendo es algo que no tiene precio.
As you can see, that's one of our programs, and one of our programs that makes us really proud. So I want to thank Bill and Teddy and Mark for making that possible. And what's interesting is one of the young girls in the video, Gabriela, these are all children who live in high-risk areas, and one of them was forced to move out of her, I just found this out last week, she had to leave her home last minute really quickly in the middle of the school year because they were in a difficult situation in terms of security. So she moved, and coincidentally, she moved to a municipality where there's another club being implemented, actually, with Hanes in San Juan Opico, and she moved right near that school. So now she's experienced, because she had been doing this for 2 years as a student, and she's helping to start and lead the club in another school. So that's really neat to see how a student can actually help champion this in other schools. You know, I think that Glee Club is one of the many clubs that this alliance makes possible, and it changes the lives of so many young people. When we started Glasswing about 6 years ago in El Salvador with the vision of transforming communities through public-private partnerships, through volunteerism, we imagined communities where everybody could take part in the transformation. We wanted to engage students, parents, we wanted to make schools the center of community development, and engage volunteers from the corporate sector, volunteers from the public and private sectors as well, and from communities. And we really see the potential for this leveraging of resources through partnerships. When a corporation can invest, and when that can be, invest financially in their human resources, and that can be leveraged by an institution such as USAID, it's really, the possibilities are endless, and it also really contributes to more sustainable development models. So Glasswing is a local Salvadoran organization that was founded in El Salvador and is now working regionally thanks to this partnership. It makes us so proud, and we're so honored to be here and sitting at the table with my colleagues and our incredible partners that have made all this possible. We have no doubt that we will impact tens of thousands of people because we already have. We've mobilized about 50,000 volunteers. With this initiative alone, we'll be investing $5 million, and we'll be investing this together. USAID, Hanes, and Chevron will be investing this together to change communities. We're going to look to change over 100 schools through extreme makeovers. And, you know, I think we've all seen the television show Extreme Makeovers with the houses. We actually try to do this in the public schools, and we do it through volunteering. So we will be impacting over 100 schools, which could be up to 50,000 students, depending on the school population, and also impacting more than 30 schools with after-school programs. So that's an enormous impact, and again, an impact made possible by partnerships and through partnerships. So as a local organization and now a regional organization, this dream of really bringing institutions together is made possible by this partnership and by the support of USAID, Chevron, and HanesBrands. So again, I'd like to thank everybody, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Lopez, again, Deputy Assistant Administrator for Latin America and the Caribbean from USAID. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Selena and William and Teddy. I think there's no one in this room that I suspect we have to sell on this idea of public-private partnerships and the rationale for moving forward. And I think that's a new day, in fact. I think 10 years ago, even, when Chevron was in this game, there was still a lot of salesmanship that needed to happen within various sectors within our government, and I'm sure within private corporations, to explain to both sides, okay, hold on a second, why are we working together now? What does this do for us? And I think the fact that we've got few dissenting voices in that debate is testament to the good work that everyone has done to bring this together and make these programs actually function and demonstrate that it's more than just the sum of the parts, and that the commitment actually does bring things on top of the particular resources of each party. So I think your comments were spot on, Selena, and several other things you said sort of brought some ideas. But I mean, I want to say thank you all for coming out. I mean, it's a pleasure to be here. As I told William initially, you know, this is not a heavy lift for AID to participate with organizations like these. This is a thing that we consider a top priority, an area of our work, particularly in Central America, that's a top priority. We spent a lot of time with colleagues trying to figure out how best we can support governments in the region in their efforts to combat what is a chilling amount of crime and violence. And we all know that there are dimensions in schools that can certainly help with that. And what we're trying to do is target and find out exactly where and when we can intervene and be supportive, because obviously we don't have unlimited resources. The scale of the problem is very large, although when we've tried to parse out, you know, where are the elements that require our engagement, they're actually fewer than we suspect. You know, one can sit back and say, oh, it's just everywhere, it's everything, it's drug trafficking, it's organized crime, it's petty crime, it's on the buses, it's on the streets, it's you know, corruption. But I think with analysis and research, there are ways to intervene more with a scalpel than with a sort of shotgun approach, and I think there are folks in the audience that know this better than anyone, so I'm glad to see you all here as well in support of this. I think part of that, the spirit of this program, which I like particularly, is the aspect of volunteerism, which I think brings a lot more to this than just our resources, and I think we can all agree that as donors, as people who write checks, you know, when we do our work well, it has an impact far beyond just writing a check. And it's about bringing together the people with the commitment to see the programs and to follow through. Everyone in this room, I assume, has done a lot of travel. I'm always astounded by the amount of people in this business that get around the world. And certainly you've learned the hard way, as I think we all have, that you don't build a school by building a brick and mortar school. We've all seen schools that are not being used for education, that are being used for other things. And I think this is a program that recognizes that it's a lot more about the people and the commitment and what you bring in your commitment rather than what you bring in your pocket to the table. So I think this it builds in a safeguard and also builds on the most important piece of what we bring to the table here, which is the sort of vigilancia from our partners. I always like to say, skin in the game, which is interesting because it's a phrase that I've tried to translate in Spanish. Actually, I have translated according to my own Spanish, and my colleagues tell me just don't ever say that again. It's not translate well. But thankfully, in the U.S., I can say that and people can understand what I'm talking about. That's not a small issue for me because in many cases it's not just about the money, and we don't necessarily need 20 partners to put in $5, but we do need strategic thinkers, people who understand how to take projects to scale, people who understand how to monitor and understand analysis and impact and show me the results, and sort of tap on the table and say, look, this is all nice and good, but we need to see real results, and this has to matter in the long run. And if it doesn't pass those tests, we can probably be doing something better. Not that we're not doing something good. We spend all day doing things that are good. But I think we all need to hold ourselves to a higher standard, which is this the best possible thing we can be doing with the resources that we have? And do we have proof for that in the impact that we're having? It's not about counting things that we do. It's about what impact do we have. So I know that Glasswing shares that commitment, and I know that Hanes and Chevron have been at this table for some time, and I'm very pleased to see this partnership continue. And just a testament to all your good work, and a big thank you for your engagement in this. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'd like to introduce Teddy Mendoza, Manager of Corporate Social Responsibility and Environmental Affairs at HanesBrands, who's going to share some words with us.
Thank you, Selena. Good morning, everyone. I am delighted to be here today, along with my colleagues from HanesBrands. Kate Carter, she is our Senior Manager of Internal Communications. Frank Vasquez, who is our CSR Director. And Jerry Cook, who's our Vice President of Government and Trade Relations. I would like to start sharing with all of you our company's CSR vision through a video that encompasses our main efforts in this field, and especially our award-winning program that we call Green for Good. So, we watch the video. Latin America is home to more than 29,000 HanesBrands employees who knit, cut, and sew the Hanes garments found in nearly every household in the U.S. Working for Hanes is more than just a job. These 29,000 employees serve as true ambassadors for the good of our company, for the good of their families, and for the good of their communities. Hanes is proud of his employees and our reputation of being one of the most respected employers across the globe, with a commitment to ethical behavior, environmental achievement, and social responsibility. Hanes has been a steady employer in Latin America for decades, including 40 years in the Dominican Republic, more than 20 years in Honduras and El Salvador. We are a pioneer in progressive workplace practices, including opportunities for advancement, our safety record and programs, our Saturday schools for employee high school and college education, and our negotiated discount program for employees at community businesses. A certified member of the Fair Labor Association, Hanes has earned the seal of certification of the Honduran Foundation for Corporate Social Responsibility and the Best Practices Award for Latin America from the Mexican Center for Philanthropy. And best of all, our employees embrace a culture of caring, commitment, and making a difference in their communities. Through our Green for Good program, or Viviendo Verde, thousands of our Latin American employees spend tens of thousands of hours each year in volunteering in their communities, gaining a sense of belonging and the pride of knowing they are helping to make their communities a better place. Planting trees, cleaning beaches and rivers, improving schools, building homes, and bringing health care to communities where the need is great. In the Dominican Republic, volunteers work with surgeons from a North Carolina hospital to deliver life-altering ear, nose, and throat surgeries to children. In El Salvador, through our partnership with USAID and Glasswing International, Hanes volunteers lead after-school clubs in high-risk neighborhoods, teaching computers, English, science, Glee Club, and helping with homework, modernizing classrooms, and serving as positive role models for the children. The program has been so successful that we have expanded it to Honduras. In Puerto Rico, Brazil, Dominican Republic, and Honduras, Hanes employees provide supplies and support to the elderly and to the abused and orphaned children. In Honduras, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, and El Salvador, Hanes mobile healthcare clinics deliver medical services and medicines to employees, their families, and people in nearby communities. Hanes volunteers make the outreach possible. The funding for Green for Good outreach comes from a unique source, the proceeds from the recycling of waste materials in Hanes factories. Paper, cardboard, and scraps of fabric become dollars for the communities. It is good for business, it is good for the environment, and it is good for our employees and our communities. Hanes gives something back in countries where it operates. Communities and schools are improved. Children are more motivated to stay in school. Employees feel a sense of purpose and belonging, and they want to do more. It really is Green for Good, and Hanes is very proud of what we are achieving. Our company has a long history of reaching out to the communities where we have our factories worldwide. And that vision of being a leader in CSR was enhanced about 3 years ago when we launched our Green for Good program precisely in El Salvador. So it was about then that we were looking for partners, to carry out projects in education, in public schools, because education has always been a high priority for us. So we were introduced to this nonprofit organization called Glasswing International. We knew about them, we knew about the work that they have been doing. So we reached out to them, and I remember in our first meetings with Ken Baker from Glasswing, he told us about this public-private partnerships with USAID that aim to reduce violence in high-risk communities in El Salvador, with the purpose of revitalizing schools, with the purpose of extending the time that students remain in school, and that it was highly focused on volunteers. So, and Glasswing was to capture funds from the private sector, and USAID would match those funds that we decided to invest in the schools. So when we heard about it, we thought that it was just such a perfect fit for us, because in one hand we had the funds generated by our Green for Good program. We also had the employees. HanesBrands in El Salvador, it's one of the largest employers from the private sector. We generate nearly 10,000 jobs in the country, so we had a large workforce in the country. And in the other hand, USAID wanted to do this project in certain communities that were considered to be high risk. Coincidentally, our factories were located in those high-risk communities. So in 2011, we signed our first public-private partnership with USAID and Glasswing. We decided to invest $100,000 that will be matched by USAID. And we chose 3 schools to begin with two schools located in the city of San Juan Opico, and the other one located in Ciudad Arce. The program was designed to have two fundamental components. First of all was the infrastructure, repair, the basic infrastructure of the schools. In El Salvador, as in the rest of Central America, schools have really poor infrastructure conditions. So the way that this worked was that Glasswing was going to lead us. Our employees will sign up and spend their weekends going into the schools, repairing bathrooms, repairing roofs, painting the classrooms, painting murals, working in landscaping, sports facilities, just refurbishing the infrastructure of the school. The second component of this public-private partnership were the after-school clubs. In El Salvador, with the overpopulation and also the lack of resources from the government, it has forced the need to have two shifts at the whole education system. So there's a morning shift, and then there's the afternoon shift, with different students at each shift. So that means that the average time that a kid remains in school or stays in school in a day, it's only 4.5 hours on average. That's not enough. So this, the way that these after-school programs work is that our employees from Hanes, they signed up to be supervised, to be trained by Glasswing, and going to these schools either under lunch break during the weekday or in the weekends. So they will go to the school. Also in the school, the kids will also sign up to be part of these clubs, and our volunteers will go there and lead math, English, arts. You saw the Glee Club, that's the most popular club, by the way. And just spend time there in the schools with the kids. Currently, we have over 60 after-school clubs in El Salvador. Nearly 120 of our Hanes volunteers are part of this program, and almost 1,000 kids, they form part of these clubs on a weekly basis. We're really proud of all the achievements that we have accomplished. The schools have now renovated infrastructure. They have more beautiful classrooms. They have new roofs, new bathrooms, new sports facilities. Based also, on surveys that Glasswing passes out to the teachers, they report the students to be more motivated. They have more discipline. They behave better. They attend the school more. Also, the principals, they report that since the program began, the overall school enrollment has been increased to 10 to 15% in each school, which means that the parents that send their kids to a different school, they want to send their kids to the schools where this program is going on. Also, for our employees, our employees deserve all the credit for it. Since this program began, nearly 900 employees have been volunteers in this Glasswing and USAID public-private partnership as volunteers, either working in construction activities or as teachers in the after-school clubs. And that's a number that we're really proud of because it represents almost 10% of our entire workforce in El Salvador. Our volunteers, they have generated over 15,000 man-hours of volunteer service since this program began. When we began this partnership, we didn't imagine the impact that this program was going to have, for the schools, for the teachers, for the parents, for the volunteers, and certainly for our company. So that's the reason why we recently announced that we were going to expand this program. We began with only 3 schools, but now we have started to implement this program in 5 schools in El Salvador and 2 schools in Honduras as well, because we also have a very large operation in Honduras. So right now we have 7 schools in this program. The cities where these schools are located in El Salvador are the cities of San Juan Opico, Armenia, Ciudad Arce, Santiago Nonualco, and in Honduras, we are working in schools in the cities of Choloma and the cities of Villanueva. So one thing that all these communities and cities have in common is one, it's violence, high, risk cities, high-risk communities. And we believe that our program addresses one of the main roots of violence, which is the lack of opportunities for the youth. So we're really proud, and we're really looking forward to continue working with Glasswing and USAID in this excellent program. Thank you.
Thank you, Teddy. I'd like to introduce again Bill Irwin from Chevron, who is also going to tell us about the work that Chevron's been doing through this alliance.
Well, thanks very much, and good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be here, and I'm Chevron's Latin America person based in Washington, and here representing the good work and effort of my colleagues in the region, Patricia Canessa and Wendy Lopez. This is really their story from a Chevron perspective. I am absolutely thrilled to be here and share their story with you. And my message today is this isn't really a Chevron story, but that the news today is the fact that is partnership, is entities coming together, putting their best foot forwards, and the incredible results that can happen when that occurs. Chevron invests in all the communities where we operate. It doesn't matter where that is, latitude or longitude. We strive to be a good neighbor, a welcomed guest, a good partner. It's not just the right thing to do, but frankly, it makes good business sense also. Business success is tied to the economic and social development of the countries where we operate. For us, the prosperity and stability of the communities where we operate are very important for a business environment. And for this, we have a solid foundation on what we as a whole corporation base our social investment strategy. We focus into three areas: health, education, and economic development. We firmly believe that the development of a country is not only the responsibility of its government, but it's the people's motivations, the private sector, local organizations all working together. Success depends on all of those entities. Central America, like many of the places where we find ourselves, has a number of developmental challenges. Strategic to our company, due to its growth and potentials, we look for ways to contribute to the development of the people there. Countries that lack enough resources to cover even the most basic of needs require assistance to help unlock some of the constraints to development, help people become more of the people and societies they deserve to be. Over the past couple of decades, Chevron's taken a hard look at how we invest in our communities. And we've learned that our successes depends not so much on how much we give, but rather on how we give and with whom we partner. That's why I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about this important partnership. Our relationship with Glasswing began in 2007 in El Salvador. It started with a common vision and an interest to improve road safety in the Salvadoran communities and increase awareness among different stakeholders. For 3 years, and with a combined investment of nearly $1 million, Chevron and Glasswing worked tirelessly in a coalition that focused on saving lives around road safety. Given those successes, we again joined forces with Glasswing in 2010 to partner on an initiative focused on renovating schools in Central America, this time focusing on El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. 2 years later, the partnership's grown. And now with the strong support of the U.S. government and funding through USAID in these countries, we can do even more. We can help to rebuild more schools, provide more children with opportunities to stay in school. And all of this has a great and positive effect that ripples through the whole society. It's great to be here today with other strong American companies as HanesBrands and who have this common vision and partnership and sharing commitment of giving back to the communities in this type of public-private partnership. That cooperation towards common goals allows a much broader impact. While our multi-year commitment in this current project with Glasswing is nearly $500,000 to be deployed through those three countries, in this instance, USAID is matching it, so that means nearly $1,000,000 will be deployed in the program. In this instance, the partnership allows doubling of the impact had we only tried to do it by ourselves. And as more partners come on board to this already defined project, we can grow even beyond that. At Chevron, we're proud of the efforts that we and our partners are making for these programs to be successful. We're thankful for the private and public organizations such as USAID, Glasswing, and other enlightened corporations for helping to make efforts even more impactful. I'm confident that together we can have a positive effect on the lives of many. And let me close my remarks with offering congratulations to Teddy and HanesBrands, to Mr. Lopez, and the great partnerships we've had over the years with USAID. And finally, back to you, Selena, for the things we've done in this program, and if I could extend myself, if you could be in proxy for all the organizations we find worldwide that have that local vision and that boots on the ground expertise that help us be really successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you. I just want to, before we open for Q&A, I want to thank Bill, Teddy, and Mark, because I think these cross-cutting themes of strategic partnerships, of participation, and of investment and joint investment in youth development and violence prevention and in community building. I think the combination, like Bill said, of fixing infrastructure. You can't be in a school if it's leaking. You can't pay attention. You can't, fixing the school infrastructure if you don't have a restroom, or if you're in a classroom without walls. It's absolutely essential to be able to do, to be able to contribute to improve the quality of education. The after-school programs, role models that are providing leadership and helping build the life skills and the self-esteem of so many young people. It's important for them, with so much family disintegration, to have people to look up to that week after week show up. And in the school infrastructure projects, they also volunteer. So to see people contribute to this is really amazing. And for us, it's an absolute honor and pleasure to be working with our partners and to be able to catalyze and to be able to leverage with USAID support and technical assistance, be able to leverage all these resources, because I think we all believe in the strengths-based approach. We believe that communities have assets and strengths that we can build on. So together we are building on existing strengths and contributing with more people and resources to improving the quality of life and the education for tens of thousands of young people. So I want to thank you immensely, enormously, and for believing in this alliance, and thank all of you for coming to celebrate with us this morning. And I'd like to open it up if you have any questions or you'd like more. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm Andrea Useem from DevX Impact. We're an organization that covers public-private partnerships. The question is about measuring impact. So you mentioned that, doing good is always good, but we need to know that it's really making a difference. And I'm wondering, first, if you could say how you're measuring the impact, and then you've mentioned violence prevention. So are any of these measurements looking at not just, how many volunteers, but actually has it led to a reduction in violence in those communities? Thanks.
Sure. So we use both quantitative and qualitative metrics. As you said, 50,000 volunteers is an output, it's a number. We really address violence prevention from a community-based perspective, which means that the more we engage communities in their schools, the more we engage parents in the schools, the more participation they have in their children's lives. So we've seen through the after-school clubs, through the volunteerism to improve school infrastructure. I think Teddy mentioned we have students that are now staying in school for longer. We administer scales to measure self-efficacy, self-esteem, social networks. The children are reporting not only that they improve their grades and their behavior, but they also spend more time with their new social networks, which are a lot of times healthier groups of friends. So they're engaging in different kinds of activities that are more related to sports or artistic, creative activities or schooling. We also have reduced we've increased the enrollment rate, and we've been able to keep kids from dropping out of school. We even have private school students that their parents pulled them from private schools to put them in these public schools because of the benefit. So our approach to violence prevention is through the life skills development of the youth. The multi-factor causes of violence are enormous, and this particular project has had impact in improving the skills that students have to be able to manage peer pressure better, make better decisions, and stay in safer contexts, and the school is one of them. So, and if you would like more information, we can also send you some of the data and some of the indicators that we report. And finally, I want to emphasize the importance of civic participation and community participation. If you're able to engage, and again, this is nothing that Glasswing or any of our partners have made up. These are models that exist and that exist in other places that we've just tried to adapt, because no one's really making anything up. As far as models, I think it's a question of making hybrids and fusing things together and fertilizing ideas with other institutions and to engage communities and improving the infrastructure. You know, everybody knows I think you're all familiar with the broken window theories. If you make communities and people proud of their communities and engage them and they determine what the priorities are for improving their public spaces, including their schools, that also contributes to a safety buffer for communities and a protective space for young people. Thank you for your question.
Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. My name is Susan Cruz, and I would like to know if there are any plans in involving the Salvadoran diaspora in the near future.
I'm so glad you asked that. That's really interesting, Susan. Thank you for asking that. We actually just had a meeting yesterday with the Salvadoran embassy, and we're really interested not just in the Salvadoran diaspora, and we're obviously in Washington, D.C., we're well represented here. We're very interested in not only learning from experiences that the Salvadoran community has had here in all kinds of experiences in social programming, including violence prevention, but we're also very interested in continuing to maintain family ties, even though now there are second and third generation Salvadoran young people who maybe have never been to El Salvador or don't speak Spanish, so we're really looking into this, coordinating, in particular through the hometown associations, through the embassies, to start linking our organization with other organizations and our partner nonprofits in El Salvador as well. And we believe that programs like this are a perfect opportunity, and volunteering is an ideal mechanism when Salvadorans go back to their countries from the U.S. and most of them want to engage, and they consistently send resources back to Central America in support of programs. So we definitely are going to expand our work in linking up with the diaspora, and we believe that that'll just multiply the impact even further. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Karen Volker. I'm with Cure Violence. We're implementing a USAID-funded program to interrupt and stop the spread of violence in San Pedro Sula. And I was wondering, I have two questions. First, what is the mechanism whereby we could perhaps tap into your coalition and have your programming benefit the people that we're working with in San Pedro Sula? And then the second thing is, have you given any consideration to talking to and bringing the maquiladoras into your coalition, so if they donate money, it's matched by USAID, and sort of bring them as part of the solution?
It's easier.
Well, to answer your second question, we are part of that industry, HanesBrands. In Honduras, we employ nearly 8,000 employees. We're also one of the largest, companies from the textile and maquiladora industry in Honduras. So the answer is yes. Us being there as the first company from that industry in Honduras, as well as El Salvador, we're looking forward that the rest of the companies also, look at us and also, motivate them to join this program as well. And as I said, one of the factors that we saw it, beneficial for us or appealing for us was that this program is based on volunteering. So the maquila industry, the textile industry in Central America, they employ so many employees that you have there a whole, range of opportunities on having all our employees to participate as volunteers as well. So going back to your answer, yes, we are there, and we want to be seen as a leader, in that industry as well. Mm-hmm.
I can answer a little bit on the first one. I think, first of all, just sort of saying, hey, let's coordinate is the start, and I think there's certainly, we can try to make sure that, and we can help sort of facilitate that, because we're usually touching on and or aware with our presence on the ground with a lot of different efforts to try to integrate those. And just so I think we'll get on that. And then on the second, or the previous question regarding impact, and I think Cure Violence is a great example of an organization that's really helped us try to understand how to target. Because one thing we found, and there are times, and I'm talking in general terms around the region, is that we had an at-risk youth center in a high-risk community, and we had dozens or hundreds of youth coming, and we said, great, we're doing so great. Well, maybe we learned that the youth that were coming were the low-risk youth that happened to live in a high-risk community. Therefore, we're actually just sort of targeting low-risk youth. It happens to be in a high-risk community. So our targeting was not acute enough. We needed to go a level down, and it wasn't sort of everyone in this sort of zip code or this part of town, but rather it was, young men between 15 and 17 on these 5 street corners between 4 and 7 p.m. It was sort of a much more specific aspect. So we're trying to drill down and learn as much about that, building on expertise in the U.S. and around the region. Colombia, Medellin, in Los Angeles, we're partnering heavily to try to bring expertise for cities in the U.S. that have brought new insights to this, and sort of really trying to get at the kind of data gathering and then response to that data to translate that downrange. So that's a big push of what we're doing. And then in terms of impact also, we're investing some considerable resources into rigorous impact evaluations with control communities and treatment communities to try to attribute the effect of our programs to a change in the violence. And now we're comparing something that's a moving target, so we're comparing differences between 2 communities. Sometimes the violence is going up, sometimes it's going down, but we want to be able to say whether or not anything we're doing is mattering to that change, or whether we're just an exogenous factor among many others and we're just sort of along for the ride. So I think it's important for all of us to take that kind of critical thinking approach and really scratch the surface every time we see something good happen and say, well, was this just coincidence, or did we really lead to this? And then I think building on the parts which of course that we led to. And the diaspora, sorry to go around, I think it's great that you raised that. The comment I made when we were at an event in El Salvador on this is that, in El Salvador there's a tradition of, at events like this, you play the Salvadoran national anthem, everyone gets up, holds their heart, does the thing, play the U.S. national anthem. I was struck by how many of the people there, connected with both anthems, right? And I think you could have that same event, whether it's Northwest San Pedro Sula or Northwest Washington, D.C., and have people reciting either anthem with as much sort of patriotism and knowledge. So the connection between our communities runs very deep, and I think people around here know that very well. And so finding ways to smartly build on that connection and see what we can bring together is something we haven't done enough of, I think, across the board with our programs in a range of countries. And I can't really speak to the why of that. I think I think there's some reasons bureaucratically why our emphasis is often far outside the U.S. and we have a limited ability to really engage in U.S. cities and across the country. As USAID, we're making a big push to try to connect universities and civil society groups in the United States with our work, and hopefully part of that is bringing in communities that can help, want to help, know how to help, and integrating them into having an impact in the countries where we work. Thanks.
And finally, I just want to mention, as far as partnering, and I think it goes along with the data and the impact measurement as well. I think violence is such a broad term, and violence prevention has so many different points in which you can intervene, and I think Mark spoke to this as well. There's so many models in the U.S. and regionally, and sometimes one organization, if we're focusing on prevention, we can find ways to partner with other organizations that are focusing on intervention. And there's so many stages at which you can intervene, and nobody can do it all. So anybody who's here from different institutions such as Cure Violence interested in partnering, we are eager, as we are with the private sector. I think we're eager to work with other organizations, particularly in areas where we don't have expertise, and we can draw from each other's expertise and complement each other.
Josephine, My name is Josephine Lee from ICMA. It's an organization that focuses on local government capacity building. And in your initiatives, how much has the local governments been involved in your programs? And if not, what have been the challenges? Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Me first? Go ahead. I'd like to give you a specific example that we have, how we worked in the city of San Juan Opico in El Salvador. There's this initiative that's also being funded by USAID called the the social prevention tables, that happen in different cities, where it's a mechanism that they bring together all the different parties, the different actors in that specific local community. There's the community leaders, there's all the government institutions, and there's also the private sector. And it's being led by the local governments, by the mayor, specifically in Opico, it's being led by the mayor of the city of San Juan Opico. So as HanesBrands, we are part of that social prevention table, being from the private sector. And through this mechanism, they, all the different actors, they design a strategy to reduce violence, and again, led by the local government. So within that plan, within that strategy, that's when we decided that we wanted to work specifically in the violence prevention, but more specifically in the education side. When we began that social prevention table, San Juan Opico was in a ranking of the I believe it was number 9 in the cities in El Salvador with the highest violence rates in the country. After 2 years that we have been working, now San Juan Opico has really reduced those crime rates, and its number, the last time I checked, it was number 23 in that list. So it has reduced, and again, with the participation of the different actors from that community and led by the local government precisely. So I think that's an example that can relate to your question.
Thank you very much. I congratulate all of you for the impact of these programs. It seems to me that is very useful in preventing crime and violence in Central American countries. I guess the lady that spoke later took my question. My question was related to how do you go about not only coordinating with donors or the communities, but also local or the national governments in terms of designing these programs? And what about using these programs also to promote activities like soccer or other sports in those communities?
We do. We have sports. We have sports as part of the activities. Just quickly, we do have partnerships, and we sign agreements with the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health in each country. So at least the mission of Glasswing and the mission, I think, of this alliance is to strengthen the quality of public services. So our focus is on trying to improve public education, and everything we do is in consensus with public sector actors. And interestingly enough, it transcends any political change that there may be at a central level, because it's at a very community-based level. So there's really no interruption whether or not there are government changes in the programs because of that participation on a community level and at a ministry level as well.
Well, I was just going to say, I think we make great efforts to work with every layer of government. Often the smallest sort of in the hierarchy of the government is some of the most critical actors in this kind of work. But one of the things we've been, I think, my criticism of the agency in the last 10 years has been a little too timid with respect to some of our efforts of getting the message out in the countries where we're working. And that's hurt us in terms of opportunities for people to say, oh, wait a second, I know something that's going on over there. You guys need to connect and talk, and let's move on. When we work in isolation, we do so at cost to lost opportunity. And I think we've made a big push to get out there. And it's not about promoting ourselves because we need credit and we need someone to say, oh, the U.S. government's great. No, we don't care about that. We care about the fact that other people find out what's going on and that we can able to connect with the other resources that are certainly at play, because You know, everyone at this table, we could add up 100 additional tables of people who are making commitments to this problem in different ways at different levels throughout. So we often, you know, one of the easy mantras is coordination is key to make sure that the various initiatives are aligned. And sometimes the incentives are different, but oftentimes they're not. And we can align them like we have today and the last few years with this partnership. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Niambi Wilder. I'm a communication specialist for University Research Company and its nonprofit affiliate, the Center for Human Services. And we work to improve the quality of and access to health, education, and social services. We have programs in Ecuador and several countries in Latin America. And I'm just curious if this partnership is looking to expand to other countries in Latin America beyond Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador.
Want to go to Ecuador?
This particular project is focused on these 3 countries. However, there's absolutely opportunities for growth in the region. And interestingly enough, Chevron and Hanes have both been, you know, the push a lot of times is from your partners, that encouragement to expand programming, which is incredible, because when the private sector is able to really have an effect on you know, in a very positive way and say, can we replicate this somewhere else? It's very interesting because it contributes to more sustainability, because a corporation's there to stay. And sometimes as development organizations, you know, you have a project that comes, or USAID will, you know, be able to provide resources, and they're very clear about it. This, you know, for this many years. In this case, it's a long program. So I think there are so many opportunities to expand, and we hope that the work continues to expand with other partners from the public, private, and not-for-profit sector.
Bivens Collinson, just a quick question. My assumption, and maybe it's incorrect, is that generally with federally funded programs there is an end date, and so I'm wondering what the organizations are doing to make this a sustainable, self-sustainable program, and how the USAID is looking and functioning and moving them towards that direction.
I'm happy to respond, but I think it's best if they start with that. But you're right, and you're right about every angle of that, and we're ever more conscious and assertive with respect to efforts to work ourselves out of the job for a variety of reasons, both because I think in Latin America in particular, and this is a Latin America specific comment, that, you know, 30 years has changed a lot in terms of who and what and how much exists in the region. I think our line is that there's a talent that is brimming throughout the region, and ability to manage programs and think strategically and build up these kinds of partnerships. So while the gains have made are a testament, to the changes that have happened in the region, we're trying to build ourselves ever more aggressively and partner with other organizations to come in. And that includes other donor countries. For example, we've got what we call trilateral partnerships with the Chileans, the Brazilians, and working with now Colombia and Mexico to build up their interests and efforts and abilities in being donors throughout the region, and transfer expertise from the Brazilian agricultural Embrapa that has tremendous depth to work with farmers in Angola, for example, or Mozambique, as well as violence experts from Colombia or Brazil to work in Central America, customs officials from Chile to work in Paraguay, tax officials from Uruguay to work in Paraguay. These we see as sort of no-brainer kinds of regional partnerships that we're trying to help subsidize with a little travel and hotel money to make sure that their government officials are able to form the relationships that we think are critical over the long run. So that's a longer answer than you wanted, but let me defer to my colleagues. Thanks.
I can just take a general statement. I can't comment specifically on these programs, but I can comment on the evolution of our own corporate responsibility. And a couple decades ago, we would talk about philanthropy. Now we talk about investment, and we often talk about multi-year commitments, and as has been talked about earlier, strategic planning and thoughtful leadership through these things. part of that includes what happens when the funding, when the outside funding ends or changes. In order to be stable, in order to be sustainable, you have to be able to anticipate and manage those changes which do come. Everything is finite. And again, maybe Selena has some comments on these specific programs, but I have a number of examples on the things that I've been associated with Chevron in Latin America or in Africa where there was a transition to a different type of funding mechanisms after we've done our part to launch programs or amplify programs or get them sort of strategically set up and organized and that sustaining infrastructure to keep it moving forward.
Well, I think, and just to kind of dovetail on what Bill's saying, even within the companies that we've been working with, what's interesting is, and in the case of Chevron, because the companies are starting to engage their different audiences more strategically and their different stakeholders, including internally. So if Chevron's program, they involve the concesionarios, what's the term for, at a gas station, the
owners.
The owners of the particular gas station, so who franchise, they're directly involved in the investment in their own communities. So, and Teddy talked extensively about engaging their internal stakeholders as well, and Chevron does this through their concessionary, or through their owners of the gas stations and the franchises, so they have a stake in this, and that contributes to sustainability, including volunteerism contributes, because people become not only more attached to the brand and the company they work with, but they also become more involved in their communities. Obviously that's a huge, a really important part of the work that we're trying to do as an organization, because you want to exist if something happens to different sources of funding you have. So as an organization, we take that very seriously, to diversify funding sources and to maintain models that will allow you to continue to work. Luckily, we have had support from these different institutions consistently over time, which has made all this possible. Growth.
Good morning. Charles Agurcia from the Embassy of Honduras. I was wondering how close you are to developing an accurate impact evaluation mechanism for the reduction of violence specifically. It's easy to sort of measure the amount of kids that stay in school or the increase in grades, but numbers that actually show the reduction of violence, not so much. I mean, your press release has those damaging numbers that include the murder rates of El Salvador and my country, but where are the numbers that show the positive impact that is being done specifically in the reduction of violence?
I can say in sort of terms from AID's side, we have a mechanism. The issue is, does it work well enough for us to adjust our programs according to what the mechanism tells us our impact? And I think that's going to be an ongoing effort. But to be honest, doing an impact evaluation of our program is very much a second best kind of scenario that we want to be in. Ideally, we'd be in a situation that I think we've learned a lot from Los Angeles, where you have credible, real-time, accurate data coming in, segmented by neighborhood, that can be aggregated across a city or a country or a region. And as you know, throughout the region, that is a tremendous challenge at every level of the data collection effort. And I think we've looked at areas to support, building up a state-led, at whatever agency level, whatever partner, whether it's police or hospitals or municipal governments, federal governments, that are collecting such data. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want to see, I think, collectively as a community, is a credible, reliable, real-time amount of data, not just on murders, but violence and crime. And so you've got a tremendous set of rule of law issues that come with that: impunity, fear, corruption, concern about institutional integrity. And so that's a problem that I think we all know runs deep, and the challenges with going at that require a series of different forces. But I think it's important to realize that that's where we want to get. and whether it's 10 years or 20 years, how are we kind of structuring our efforts to really build up those institutions that are ultimately responsible for gathering that data, rather than the best, most sophisticated third-party impact evaluation that we might come up with. That is not going to serve the interests of the countries themselves over the long term. So we're hoping to do both, a recognition of a need to understand what our programs are accomplishing or not in the short run, and therefore allow them to be directed more accurately, but at the end of the day, not undermine the efforts, the state efforts, and support in any way we can state efforts to build up that information database that all of us can use, not just the police, not just the systems of justice, but any public university or group that wants to do this analysis. They'll have a database there that they can draw upon and then try to connect that with each intervention. So great question.
Yeah, and the lack of, I think, data is a challenge, and also establishing causality. I think direct cause of violence is a very complex issue. So when you're looking at, prevention, you need to be able to establish causality, and the linear causality is a challenge. But that's something that, as organizations, I think nonprofits across the board, as colleagues, we are looking to be able to establish. I think Teddy mentioned an example in one of the municipalities where a joint effort that's been a lot of different institutions, including the municipal government, the police participate, the local health facilities. They've seen, we've been able to see results from these cross-sector partnerships. But I think it is something that we consistently are working on improving, and particularly the data from different institutions. Okay, I think we'll take one more question.
Hi, good morning. My name is Chris Ash. I work at the State Department on security in Central America. This is fantastic. I've been doing security in Central America too long, and to finally see positive things that have sustainability, it's very heartening. And one of my questions, where are the big names of the Central American companies? And it speaks to the question from Honduras. We're there to help. We're not there to do it for the Central Americans. So I think it's great that Chevron and Hanes and AID are helping, but maybe you can speak to what are the challenges of having the private sector in these countries that have been developed there, that have the real stake in the success of security and the youth. What are they doing, and are they effective partners, and do they need to do more?
Just like you said, right now we're here with two of our most important partners from the private sector. There are local companies and regional companies that are involved in different social investment projects. In many cases, I think this paradigm shift from charity to philanthropy to strategic philanthropy, this paradigm shift in strategic social investment is still going on. In the US, it's still going on in the developing world, it's still going on in Latin America. There has been, in the 6 years that I've personally been living in El Salvador, I've seen a huge increase in the participation of the private sector. There are local companies getting involved in these prevention tables. There are local companies getting involved in their immediate communities. And it's definitely improving. And I think people are seeing the importance of taking ownership and taking that role. And I believe initiatives like these are really, sometimes multinationals can help encourage their whole value chain and their participation as well. And they can help encourage other corporations to get involved, including local ones. But definitely, we haven't been able to represent the participation of local companies, but there is, and it's on the increase. And I think USAID is also encouraging this participation through this kind of model of public-private partnerships and really getting Salvadorans engaged from the public and private sectors.
If I could just pile on with the point you made earlier, and this is a benefit of the structure of our business, it's just the way it operates, that in fact the service station owners are individually owned or groups owned sets of them. They're not Chevron-owned facilities. So while there's some Chevron money flowing into these things, there's also the sweat and toil and own money of those own privately run enterprises. So that is local private sector at work right now in components of this. So not only are they involving themselves, but they're talking to their suppliers, they're talking to their customers, and sometimes good ideas take a little bit of time to really gain traction and move, but frankly, my experience has been that good ideas always do move, and I think it'll happen.
Great. Just if I can do a last point on that, I think it's a great question, Chris, and I know Chris well, and when he has something that's not popular to say, he always says that as well. So it's a great thing to just get a nice comment from him. So the other thing that we haven't done enough of, I think, and we can all participate in this, is an aggressive and unapologetic request of resources from people that have them. And I think we can go around hat in hand, but not be satisfied with, sure, we'll lend you our room for a half an hour so you can have a meeting, but how about, $500,000 or $100,000 and 7 or 10 of your people over the course of the next 5 or 10 months to really commit to this? Because I think when the give is painful, the attention and the vigilancia comes with it. And so we don't want the easy gives because they don't often come with the attention that a hard give comes with. So we want to ask, and that I think Bill's point was great, is that it comes from every direction, right? I mean, the people have to ask it, and sometimes we're working in scenarios where the culture of philanthropy or contributing to one's neighborhood is not as strong as in other areas. But I think we can all raise our expectations collectively and say, look, this is a collective responsibility. You need to bring the money to the table, and you need to bring the attention and the commitment as well. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. We have one last question.
It's perfect timing, actually. So it's for you, Mr. Lopez, and you, Chris. I'm with Partners of the Americas. Recently returned from another organization in Libya, where there's a lot of money, a lot of private sector money. What is the U.S. government going to put in place to ensure those private sector companies are vetted, that our U.S. tax dollars are being matched with socially responsible money?
Wow, it's uncommon that I get a request for additional vetting when we talk about vetting. I mean, it's a tough issue vis-a-vis. I think Latin America has a different set of challenges there. I think that's a good point, and sort of understanding where the money's coming from and sort of the goals behind it is sort of a natural part of due diligence when we do any program. But I think if you can hire people like Lindsay, who I know well from my volunteer experience, you've done a good job of having great people on your team to drive this. But I think we've got a series of procedures within AID and also working with state. I don't know if Chris has any additional comments that I'm happy to hear, but and I can't speak to the Libya case, but I think certainly knowing where the money comes from and making sure that there are no outside interests that are going to diminish the effort are certainly is a valid point. And clearly, we have legal structures in place to make sure that the standard due diligence takes place as well.
Thank you so much. With that, I think I'd like to just. Can you hear me? You can probably hear me anyway. Again, I think I really want to thank Bill, Teddy, and Mark for being here, and I want to thank all of you for attending this press conference. It's an exciting time in development in general. It's an exciting time to have these partnerships that are having such an incredible impact on our countries. And I want to thank everybody for coming here and joining us today in this presentation and this celebration of an initiative, and emphasize that the partnerships, we're always looking, I think all of us are always looking to grow our partnerships, our institutional partnerships, and improve our work in every way we can and complement our efforts. So thank you so much. I'd like to invite all of you to coffee if you'd like some, and if you have any other questions for any of us individually. Thank you very, very much for coming.